Your mind is a storyteller. It spins tales of the past, the future, judgment, and fear. But the story isn't reality. Hey guys, it's John sitting here in the soon to be new studio with my fabulous mug of coffee. I hope you guys are having a fantastic time wherever you are. I wanted to come on and talk about the idea of the stories we tell ourselves. The mind is a memory, an imagination, but not truth, because truth is chosen and subjective. When we come to the concept of the stories we tell ourselves, oftentimes those stories come from people who have harmed us in the past or people who have lifted us up in the past. We have this idea of these experiences of life, and the mind always divides into good and bad and past and future or me or other. But in that delineation of those variations, we look at it from the aspect of what is the story behind it? And oftentimes those stories aren't true. Oftentimes those stories are that when someone makes you feel less than, that's the story that they've given you. And if you take that story, you give up your infinite self. You give up your ability to create something beautiful, to be more. And the mind will retell that pain endlessly because you're choosing to retell that pain. When we feel our fears and anxieties, that's the mind projecting fearful futures. When you look at fear itself, fear in the present moment is only an emotional reaction, but it's always an emotional reaction to your past experience or an expectation of something negative ahead of you. And what anxiety really is fear run amok. Our body gets stressed because we're holding in air, because that is the primal fight or flight response that comes along with fear. As that body holds in air, our body starts to get tense and tight, and we start to lose our breath. We start to feel because our body is suffering from holding in the air. We don't consciously think, I'm going to hold this air. We just naturally do it out of fear and anxiety. And the longer you do it, your body suffers, and anxiety becomes a much bigger experience of your life. People suffer in anxiety. And the fastest way to break an anxiety attack is to exhale. My best friend Tim had severe anxiety attacks. And one day he called me up out of the blue. He says, John, I want to thank you. I go, why? What did I do? He says, I was having a severe anxiety attack and I kept hearing you say exhale. He says, and John, I just exhaled and everything went away. The anxiety all went away. I said, Tim, that's because anxiety is nothing but fear run amok. And all you did was shut off your fear response by simply exhaling. As I said, the anxiety is coming from fear, and fear is projecting fearful futures. And then when you dive into guilt, that's the fear of past experiences or trying to live into somebody else's experiences. And those old stories of having to live up to mom or dad or my boss or my friends or any of those things, or I didn't love them enough, I didn't give them enough, I didn't when they had a bad experience, I wasn't there enough. That is a story you're telling yourself. You know, people are all going through their own experiences in life, and guilt is literally the fear that we've done something harmful. Well, if you have done something harmful, do your best to make amends. If they don't accept it, then you have to forgive yourself. You have to let yourself go and drop that story. So, okay, that's an old story from my past, and I would never do that now. So now I am being something different. Don't let the stories of your past define you now. Every day is a blank page of your story, and you get to write it. You get to choose whether it's an action adventure or a comedy or a love story, or you get to choose the experience you're having. And then stepping beyond the story is to start to realize that as you write that story, you get to choose the sights, the sounds, even the breath of being in the present, even being relaxed and joyful and laughing. When you're laughing, you're exhibiting the two key elements of every big spiritual experience. You're present and you're fearless. And in that present fearless, you are your authentic self. Your authentic self isn't telling yourself a story. You're just in that moment feeling good and laughing, letting all that air out. Because what is a laugh? It's a joyful exhale. You're literally shutting off the primal fight or flight response when you're laughing. But you're also fully present. You're not thinking about your bad stories that made you feel bad. You're thinking about, that was funny. I am feeling this experience in the now.
And now, a quick word from our sponsor. Coffee Time with John.
This channel runs off coffee, so get your coffee and tea at johnsjoe.com. True awareness and expanding awareness is here before thought arises. It's about coming back to the present and living in this expression of the here and now as a choice, not as something that you miss out on. As you're going through your day, practice moments of silence. When someone's talking, be quiet. Don't interrupt. Listen. Hear what they're saying and respond from a place of love and understanding. That one simple gesture of listening and being quiet for that moment, it not only allows them to expand, it allows you to absorb and to understand and to truly know. Because if you're talking on top of them, you're not hearing what's happening and you're not offering solutions that work because you haven't heard them. Stop and listen. If you're having a stressful, anxious day, go outside, sit down, breathe in the fresh air, walk in the woods, walk on the beach, just sit on your stoop if that's a place that makes you feel calm. Just go there and sit down and exhale and realize that place doesn't make you feel calm. It's the place that you've given the power to let you feel calm. You can feel calm at any moment. Walking through the grocery store, things going crazy around you, you can choose in that moment to be aware and be calm. And you can choose in that moment to be the feeling of love that allows people to spot you and feel your presence and they smile at you. That's one of the practices I do all the time. When I'm out in public, before I even go into a store, I stop and I just simply exhale. And I feel what that feels like. And I walk into the store with that feeling and people smile at me. Now, because I'm feeling that, I'm naturally smiling. I'm naturally in that place. Rest the mind. Realize that you can just be. Notice the pause between your thoughts. Notice that calmness in those pauses. Stay in the felt sense of being rather than chasing thoughts or reacting to stimulus. Joshua said, turn the other cheek. When stimulus comes, turn the other cheek. Recognize it as information. Let it pass on by. Observe stories as appearances rather than truths. Realize whatever story is coming, it's coming from a perspective. Right now in the new age, everyone's talking about channelers and many of them lock into them as if this is truth. It's that person's perception of what's coming through their own ideologies and their own beliefs. People will tell me, well, Joshua said this in this channeling. I said, no, someone said Joshua said that. Truth is subjective. It's all our own choice. When you live beyond the mind and the stories, you don't have to silence thought anymore. You just stop believing it. You stop taking everything as a truth and you start assessing the truth. You start to use your sense of discernment by going, is that true? Now, many people will call this critical thinking, but it's not about critical thinking as much as, or being critical as much as it is being aware. What is this tale? What is this story? When I was a little boy, my brother came to me. He says, John, scientifically, hot water freezes faster than cold water. And I thought about it for a second. I said, that's ridiculous because it has to become cold water to freeze, right? So it has to go through the process of becoming cold to go to freeze. So his argument was, no, this is true. And I was like, it makes no sense to me because hot water is a subjective thing. It is water that is hot. It is water that is cold. Which one freezes? The cold one. So hot water has to transform to cold before it can become frozen. So the idea of this is that I could have believed it as a story. When I was a really young kid, my evil older brothers convinced me that red-winged blackbirds, the little red-winged blackbirds, were carnivorous and they'd kill you. That, if I see them, I should run. And I remember walking down as a little boy, walking down a road, and it was called Swede Street, and there was a section that was all woods. And as I'm walking down that road, I looked over and I saw a whole bunch of red-winged blackbirds, and I ran because that was the story, that was the truth for me, that those birds were going to kill me, and I had to run when I saw them. Someone told me that truth. Someone made that young boy afraid. Someone made that young boy terrified of red-winged blackbirds. And the interesting thing is that young boy was living that truth, was living that experience. I was terrified. Now I'm an older man, and I don't believe red-winged blackbirds are carnivorous. But I do believe that story was cruel, that story was to give me a fearful ideology, that story was to tease their little brother, right? And that's what kids do. They just do those sorts of things. But this idea of letting that little boy think a certain thing really um, gave them the power to make their little brother afraid. And that is the power of story. Stories can make you afraid. And your freedom comes when you realize that the stories, the thoughts, are weather passing through the sky. They come and they go, but unless we hold on to them, they don't stick around. Until we let go of the stories that limit us, that become the parameters of our experience. Until we let go of those stories, we are going to live those stories out, and we're going to do all kinds of new chapters of that story. Life becomes richer without the constant commentary, without the constant stories we tell ourselves. When you come back to the present moment awareness and just say, I'm creating, I am this. Understand you're not your mind. Your mind is a collection of stories. Your past is a collection of stories. And you don't need to fight them. You need to release them. Step beyond the story and rest in the reality of awareness that you are creating in the now. If you find that you are not feeling that life is beautiful and fun and exciting, exhale. Ask yourself, well, my experience to this point might not have been those things, but what am I creating now that will be shown to be next? What is the thing in this moment that will take me to that next moment and show me the expression of life? And then spread that truth, that peace that's already here and now, and share it out into the world so that people can experience it with you. Become the bright spot so that they can make their own stories. And then together we can build an entire series of stories that is beautiful, loving, and caring. And that's my thought on this. You guys have a great day. And I'll talk to you soon. See you. Bye.